Just start.
Okay. And the pass to you and the pass to you. Right. Well, welcome. This is the session on the Runway Project and its first financial vehicle to solve the runway problem. I'm Kevin Jones, and I have some great folks. Why don't we introduce ourselves 1, 2, 3, and then we'll sort of, this is a progressive narrative, and we're going to kind of tell the story in pieces with the people I'm on the stage with. I'm the convener of SOCAP, and so just introduce ourselves like this, from Jessica.
Sure. Okay. Let's see here. Maybe it's happening. It sounds like it's happening.
Yeah.
Hi. Good afternoon. I am Jessica Norwood, and I'm a fellow right now at the Nathan Cummings Foundation in New York. And I have the honor to work alongside these real fine people here on the Runway Project. And we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about the genesis of that and really how it has been held by the people on the stage and moved forward into the area, into the Oakland Bay Area. So,
Great. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Conda Mason, and I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of Impact Hub Oakland, a co-working community in Oakland, California, across the bay. And I am very happy to be on the stage and talking about this project that has really happened in very quick timing and to actually solve a very old problem. And so I'm just happy to be here.
yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Connie Evans. I'm president and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity in Washington, D.C. We're the National Trade Association for U.S. Microfinance. And this project is so important. We are just delighted to be able to be partnering with the Runway Project, and you'll hear more about our role as we continue. It's great to be here. Great to see you here.
Yeah.
How many people were here at 8:30 this morning in this room? So there's, okay. So we're going to go deeper into that story with the people who are really making it happen. But the story starts about 3 or 4 years ago when, it was 4 years ago? When Conda Mason came to SOCAP and for the first time and asked a question.
I did. I asked, well, it was a rhetorical question, actually. So it was my first time at SOCAP, and I felt the room felt like it was one extremely non-diverse, let's put it that way. And except for the folks of color that were in the room were primarily Africans from East Africa. And the African American presence was nilch. And then I noticed what was happening is that the impact investors, there was a lot of money going into Africa, Asia, South America, those kinds of territories where a lot of the impact dollars were going, which is great, necessary, wonderful. And I asked the question, well, what about African Americans? There's money going outside of our country, but internally, right next door where, you know, I'm in Oakland, where's the money and why has there been no investments in the African American community?
And so Conda asked me that question, and it just, you know.
And I knew the answer.
Well, yeah. And
I wanted to see if he knew the answer.
and it turned out that, you know, I hadn't paid any attention to it. Basically, that was the basic thing. And then I looked, and you know, there were more Kenyans and Ugandans than there were African Americans. There were many more Africans, but there were more from 2 countries than this country. It was, and the dollars were flowing the same way. And so, you know, I thought I'd do something kind of clever, and had a session or 2 the next year with, you know, Ben Jealous and Ed Duggar, and we would ask that question. And so my idea was, well, you know, we'll embarrass some people, and then everything will change. You know, they will realize the problem, and the people with power and money would just change. And then we did it again the second year, and it didn't. Nothing ever happened. And I started thinking about, that's a problem. We built this great thing, and it was really about bringing people who were not in the room in together, and there was a whole lot of people not in the room. What do you do to solve that? And the other part is not here, but also not investable. What could make that investable? And so then last November, I met Jessica Norwood, and she explained what I think the right systemic intervention is to cause a change.
Right. So we ended up meeting at the first Neighborhood Economics Conference, and I had a chance to talk with Kevin and Tim. And Kevin, on the very first phone call, starts talking about why is it that we're investing more in Africans and not necessarily in African Americans. And I thought that's an interesting, very provocative question. And so we had a couple of dialogue. Months later, actually, or a couple months later, I see Kevin again, and took us 5-minute conversation where I said, listen, I've been in Alabama for a while, that's where I'm from, and I work with entrepreneurs. I myself am a social entrepreneur. I've worked on the for-profit and the nonprofit side for a really long time. And I've been involved in building loan funds. I've been involved in, incubator, accelerator, the entire gambit of interventions. And I've looked at a lot of things around food systems and African-American farmers, food producers, restaurants. I've looked at all of this. And I happen to overlay a lot of that thinking around a structural race analysis and lens. So I'm looking really at like systemic and root causes, how we got somewhere and how do we get out of that, and what are the levers or the linchpin inside of this system that might unlock a flow of capital that could do something different in a community. And time again, I kept hearing something that sounds really very innocent on the surface. And it's when somebody tells you that you've got a great business idea, and then they say, hey, it's an awesome idea. You should go out and raise money from your friends and family. And I would hear this over and over and over again, and then I would look at the data that says what the wealth gap is between African Americans and whites, and I'm thinking, what friends? What family? Like, how would that work? And it just kept coming up over and over and over again. Businesses that had been started never got the level of capitalization, so they could not perform or really get into the marketplace. It wasn't that they didn't know where the market was. It wasn't that they didn't have the technology. They didn't need more mentors. This was really a starting off point problem that I was looking at. And it didn't matter what kind of business, whether it was food business or if it was folks that were going to be in technology that were going to have big exits in the end. All of them had this initial starting off problem. And so I said to Kevin, if you really want to dive in on this question, I have a place to start that nobody seems to really look at. And within 5 minutes, Kevin was like, oh, okay, let's try it out. And I don't think I was thinking he was going to say yes that fast either. I was like, whoa. And so we took off running. I think the first thing that we decided to do was to curate and bring together a meeting of folks who have been working at different spectrums on that question all along. Folks like Connie, who is with AEO, that works with micro enterprises, works with microfinance, works with all of the big CDFIs, and had been articulating that question or looking at this same issue from her viewpoint, and was able to come in and share with us what kind of money, where, and what it would really do at scale. And so we were able to have those conversations in New York, and that was our first time getting together.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as we look at this, it was really kind of interesting because I had 20 years in Mississippi, and racism in Mississippi is both personal and structural. So you're aware of it because there's the personal aspect of it. I had a trade journal for the farm-raised catfish industry one time and working in the Delta, and they got offered a $750,000 grant for training to do processing, and they'd only have to put up $1 to 10. And I was with the board of supervisors, and I said, well, if they get trained, then they'll have skills and leave. So they turned down the money. So that's how decisions were done in Mississippi. Whereas out in California, the structural stuff didn't have the personal stuff, so white folks are more blind to it in a whole lot of ways because it doesn't have that edge to it. So I was willing to look at it, and it was a real problem that really bedeviled us. And we worked with Rodney Foxworth in Baltimore, Derek Brazil in Cincinnati, and they all had this same kind of problem. And so we kept looking at that, and we tried to. This group helped us define the kind of capital, which is where Conda, working with Ronnie at Optima Business Bootcamp, figured out that kind of capital. And then the other person we got involved was the fabulous Napoleon Wallace. Was with self-help, just a real genius, and he was both a genius and he could figure it out, but he was also leaving, and so he had a lot of social capital to use to cause something to happen. We work with the self-help credit union and the federal credit union, 700 million or so, and we got this thing built by this big organization in 3 months, which, you didn't even get your cards printed by that time. I mean, it's a major change, and so we're now working with Annie and Brian and all the folks at Self-Help Federal right there they'll raise their hands, and so we built this thing, but Conda was there to work with Ronnie and the entrepreneurs work out of Hub Oakland at Hub Oakland. So you were clear about that, what they need.
So basically, so that question that I asked Kevin years ago, I had no idea that he had been pondering it all these years. On a separate track, at Impact Hub Oakland, we have a wonderful business accelerator called Optima Business Bootcamp that Ronnie Crozier, Ronnie, you want to raise your hand? Ronnie is the co-founder of, and it is an incredible year-long program that has 4 modules, and it really meets the entrepreneur right where they are, and great success. A lot of people coming out of it, our entrepreneurs in Oakland are women and people of color, and a lot of African Americans specifically. And so it's a really great program, and we've been thinking for a while, Ronnie and I talking about, okay, this is great, but where's the money at the end of the program that people can get started? They've got great enterprises, and we have no money. And the next level up of money, of cash, is too high. It's too high of a bar. It's way too high of a bar. Even though people think of it as a gap, it's still too high for this level of entrepreneur. And so we've been putting our heads together trying to say, we got to figure out how we can get money for this. And then while this was happening, we're doing that. And then Kevin one day sends me an email and says, read this blog. And it was about the Friends and Family Gap. And I was like, that's it. And so we started, so we have the pipeline of entrepreneurs along with a relationship that we just forged with Kiva Zip and their graduates who are coming out who also need that next step of capital, and other people, from Fund Good Jobs, ICA. We have a lot of people that we're looking as the pipeline for this initial friends and family money that makes it, and we're working on making it as friendly as possible so that it really serves our entrepreneurs, because again, our entrepreneurs often are saddled with debt already. Right? They've got credit card debt, they've got student loans, they don't want any debt, and we don't want to strap them with more debt. So this first product is a debt product, even though we hope, we're looking at more than that, but at the moment it's a debt product, but as friendly as we can make it so that it makes it really easy for them to take it and that we feel comfortable recommending, because we really care about the people that we work with. And so that's what Self-Help Federal Credit Union is working on, is to make this product super friendly to our entrepreneurs and make it easy for investment as well, and we could talk about that.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that's where AEO really comes in. She's already mentioned one of our partners, which is Kiva. Kiva sits on our board, and they're able to provide that next run.
Yeah.
AEO has a network of community development financial institutions, nonprofit, mission-focused lenders. Actually, we have the largest network in the country of CDFIs who are small business loan funds. And through our network, we'll be able to also, once this product has legs and is ready to be spread, we're able to help scale that product and get it out into the hands so that more and more African Americans are able to use it. Jessica mentioned that we got together at her meeting in New York last year. It's been that was this year.
This is all
wow, this all has been
everything
has happened so quickly. And AEO has been working on 2 different paths that definitely brought all of this together for us and our involvement. One, of course, is we're looking for capital solutions that we can take to scale through our networks. We think that being hyper-local is necessary, but we also have to reach national scale so everybody can have access to the capital and other resources that they need to be successful. The second thing that we're doing is focusing on trying to get a better understanding of African American businesses, the strengths and opportunities of supporting those businesses, so we can talk a different narrative about supporting more and more African American-led own businesses. And so in that research that we're doing that's been funded by Kellogg Foundation, it was a natural marriage to bring all of these issues and conversations together. And so we think we know definitely, as others have documented, our evaluations and our studies also show that it's a huge wealth gap, and that wealth gap is accounting for the lack of businesses being formed in some of our communities. There is absolutely no lack of vision, no lack of talent, no lack of interest in starting a business. Recently, I had to argue with someone who told a room similar to this, that blacks, African Americans in this country are being pushed into entrepreneurship because they don't have other choices. Our research shows that is not true. African Americans have the same level of aspirations and inspiration to start their own businesses. They just lack the capital. They just lack the other kinds of resources. So a product like this that helps people bridge from not having wealth, but being able to take their ideas forward is so important. And we're really proud to be a part of that and be able to be the catcher of these businesses as you get started, who we can send along the path of being able to access more and larger forms of capital, as well as other types of services.
And if you are familiar with the sort of traditional, let's say internationally focused SOCAP thing, they call this thing in the middle the valley of death. Beyond the accelerator, beyond the challenges, you get 150 to 200,000, and you don't get to Series A venture funding. Here, there actually is a whole funding food chain that exists in the CDFI network. They do business loans that need, payables, receivables, a history. We're doing personal loans for a business purpose. So that's the friends and family level. And, friends and family is a really interesting kind of capital. I gave my nephew $5,000 a couple of years ago, and, it didn't work, but I'd seen the kid, and he was worth it. It's character-based lending. He's got some leadership characteristics, and he learned from it. So that friendly capital doesn't exist if your mom and them have 11,000 and white folks have 144,000. And it's curious that there's really no data here. So we don't know what the loss curve is. We don't know what the failure rate is, because this is not an asset class. It's been a social construct around which we're building an asset-related vehicle. The great thing about this from a white ally kind of standpoint is that because we have a loss reserve, and we've got 100,000 committed from a source, and we sold $100,000 in a CD yesterday to a woman who said, "Oh, I want exactly that." It was wonderful. I think it's going to be great, because how we can sell it is you can make above market and your money can do good, or you can put it with a big bank and it will make less money and it won't do any good. So it's your choice if you want to make more money and do good, or make less money and just give it to Wells Fargo and see what games they play with you. So, and the other thing is, I think we can tell a new story. I'm going to tell I've told you some of the background of Mississippi on things. We built the largest Habitat for Humanity chapter in Jackson, Mississippi, using a strategy that I think I'd like to see how it could replicate here. And it was a real community engagement thing. There is, a lot of people talk, there's a narrative around people that are different. And, in Jackson, what we did was we penetrated every white trust circle that was pre-existing. So we went to the Rotary Club, the Civitan Club, the Junior League, insurance defense law firms. And we would bring a homeowner, and you were working alongside that homeowner. It's not a handout. They got 500 sweat equity hours. They're working alongside you. Do you want to work alongside them and, create independence and do all those things? And everybody signed up. We built 300 houses, and we were the largest in the country doing that. Because and each time we were telling a new story about folks, they already had another story in their head. I'd like to do something like telling a new story around these entrepreneurs that you're investing with, because they'll be buying a CD. So it's not a handout. You're not only making more money doing good, you're co-investing with the entrepreneur who's building a business at low scale that can hopefully graduate on the funding food chain to Connie's AEO loan finder, and that's a really key piece too. When we tried to do this in Cincinnati with Derek, who spoke yesterday, you guys hear Derek Brazil?
Yeah, he's right there.
Yeah. But did you hear him talk? Anyway, he does this great accelerator mortar, and there's a lot of things about it. We got some grant funding around Derek, and we tried to work with a CDFI there before she had this thing, and there was no CDFI that was doing business creation, wealth creation. Right. We talked to a really good CDFI, and they were doing job creation, and I said, well, what jobs? I said, well, they're tearing up 14 parking lots, so that's a whole summer of jobs. It was a good contract. I said, well, what about business creations? You got to go to Cleveland. Cleveland does that. They didn't have the underwriting or anything around small business creation. Now she's got this loan finder where if you're in Cincinnati and you want to do business creation at the level of business loan, the Q loan finder, these CDFIs, won't you explain your loan finder? but it solves the problem of being in Cleveland and not, or being in Cincinnati and not Cleveland.
So actually, I am going to talk about that, but I want to go back to something you said, Kevin, that I think is critical. And again, kudos to self-help for stepping up. But we may not have a track record on this product yet, but we do have some experience and knowledge behind character lending in this country. There was a group of us from when I started the Women's Self-Employment Project in Chicago a long time ago, back in the mid-'80s. We experimented with some others around the country, bringing some of the elements of the Grameen Bank model to the United States. And that was a model that really did provide small loans, in my case, small loans to primarily African-American women in Chicago, and it was all character-based. No collateral, it was their peer members approving loans for each other, and those loans were successfully repaid. North Carolina and some other programs had similar programs. None of those programs ended because of default rates, high default rates. Those programs ended for cost reasons and not scalability and some other things that I think we're going to try to solve in this, but not because of defaults. Right. And so I think, we should look that there is some experience in doing character-based lending for small business in this country that we're gaining from, and we're taking off from there. So it's not a complete start, it's not a completely new start. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure that I added. But AEO has, again, this network that will be able, we have something created called Dream Fund. And part of what Dream Fund acts as a shared balance sheet for lenders, for small business loan funds that are mission-based. And what that provides is an opportunity for local funds and others to be able to use that Dream Fund to make loans in their local community. Again, it's a national fund. It's been designed purposely to be a good fund for investors. So as we start looking in Cincinnati, for example, to identify investors don't want to spend a whole lot of time having to underwrite each and every single intermediary possible. The Dream Fund has been structured in such a way that it actually mimics the safety and risk issues related to a special purpose vehicle. So it's an instrument or structure that has been applied very successfully with other asset classes, but has not necessarily been used in small businesses, and particularly in a nonprofit structure. This will allow two things to happen, especially for people like Derek and those who are in communities where a CDFI fund doesn't even exist. We can still be able to capture funds in an investment into Dream Fund and obligate those funds to specific geographies, to specific demographics and other characteristics identified by the investor or the lender themselves. The other thing that it provides is access to technology platform. That's what's making all of this work. That's what's making it scalable, and hopefully for all of our benefits, will make it cost effective to really be around a long time to help these individuals go further and be able to reach so many. And so the scalability, the flexibility to be hyper-local at the same time have national coverage, we think is a real opportunity for the Derricks and for Oakland Hub and all the other hubs that you guys are working to bring into this over time.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is so interesting about all of this, well, one, let me underscore a couple of things. First, I want to say how fast all of this came together. Like, you have no idea, but I'm about to tell you, really fast. Quite honestly, Self-Help Federal, Annie was really working on like PowerPoints and approvals and stuff like this week, like just to make sure that we could all get clear on what we were going to say this week. So like, tremendous amount of effort, but a part of that was really tapping into something that folks have been really looking for an answer around and wanting to be a part of solving. That was why everybody said yes so quickly and moved so fast. So I just want to say this is something that strikes at what it gets to what we're seeing over at AEO, what we're seeing at Impact Hub Oakland, what neighborhood economics was seeing, everybody was seeing the need for this and willing to put in. Part of what I think makes this so incredible is my background comes from a long line of fundraising that really talks about how you aggregate dollars. So a lot of folks may go out for big plays. I really actually like the democracy and the inclusiveness and the connection to community around smaller, low dollar raises. Now, low dollar for me it's a lot for a lot of folks, but in aggregate, we have a lot. And I really wanted to demonstrate to communities of color, to all of us, that we can put our money together and have a real impact, and it does not have to like break us down. So the CD you can buy into the CD at $500. And this is a way for every single person and for institutions, everybody to play together around. This is really a real demonstration of what it means to be real friends and family. Or like we say in the South, you my cousin now, right? You know, in the South we call everybody cousin, so you my cousin now. And so I wanted something that could demonstrate what it meant if we were all together. So it's also very much about what the entrepreneur needs out of it. But that friends and family money is what I like to say, that's that believe in you money. Right? It's the kind of money that what goes along with that is saying, like, I believe in taking a risk and a chance on you. I know you come from some good stuff, you know, and I want to see you get a chance to explore. And it is all of us actually demonstrating and saying that we all believe in you. And to be able to share that with an entrepreneur, to say, listen, this isn't just some nameless, faceless, whatever institution or whatever. This is a whole bunch of people from your community that have all put in together to say that they believe in seeing you make it out there. That changes the narrative in a really huge way. That was the part that I was trying to get to. I wanted to shift us back to a culture where, particularly in the African American community, where those businesses that we talk about from Black Wall Street and so forth, those were businesses that were created because other entrepreneurs, other community folks seeded into that. And at a certain point, we lost a lot of that fabric, right? And how do we get that back? Some of the things that we talk about that we see as challenges or failures in our community has a lot to do with what we want to see around connection. And in order to demonstrate connection, you've got to put something in, right? You've got to show up and you've got to put something in. And this is our way of actually saying, I'm going to live into the values that I espouse. It's different than just talking about it, but now I get to actually live into it. And it isn't just make-believe or money out in the sky somewhere that's happening somewhere else. This is real at the ground level. Here's the other thing I want to underscore. So many people told me, and I've talked to a lot of folks, by the time you get some yeses, I promise you're going to heard a lot of no's, right? That it's too difficult to address race in this country from the position of how we put our dollars. People have said to me that to take on racial inequity and this wealth gap is just too challenging, or that needs to be something that somebody else takes on, or it's going to take a whole lot of money. I'm not saying it doesn't take money. I'm not saying it don't take a lot more, because I'd like to see some more come in. But what it takes is finding the right lever. It takes finding the strategic entry points. It doesn't mean it's the only entry point, but it does mean finding the right entry point, and it does mean adding in a certain level of mix of things. It means saying, listen, we have all talked about putting in resources that starts right here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we are missing right here. If you don't invest in the upstream, nothing comes downstream. So if you don't make a sizable investment, if you don't think about that particular part, then how do you get to diversity? How can you say you care about inclusion? How can you talk about impact if you haven't actually taken the step in at the very first part? And so that was the part that I saw missing. The other part is who is in that conversation. Not only what entrepreneurs are getting the money, but who is putting the money out there matters. That matters a lot, because I have worked in a lot of different venues, raised a lot of money for a lot of things, and I've had some lovely donors along the way. Some have written sizable checks, and when they start grumbling, oh man, the whole institution organization can start rocking. But when I had my 100 or so folks who were putting in their thousands of dollars, then I was able, if one or two got a little upset, I was like, okay, chill out. We still gonna make it, you know? So it matters who's actually in the conversation. It matters whose money is in. It matters who also gets that kind of money. And this product hit those buttons for me. Yeah. The third thing is it matters the wraparound services. Money by itself is not a be-all, end-all. When you do friends and family kind of money, it is, as I said, it's that believe in you money. It also comes with that aunt, that uncle who says, well, you know what you should do. Sometimes you don't want them to tell you this part, but it also comes with that aunt and uncle who says, listen, you know, I'm going to put some folks on your board. And they stack your board with fantastic folks. I've had that happen. It comes with folks who say, you know what, we're going to come in and I'm going to set you up a desk at my office and you just work from here. A lot of that is already built into what happens at Hub Oakland. They got the space, they got the people, they have all of those things. And so all of this entire ecosystem comes around this one product that we're talking about. And what was so cool about this is it steps you into what it is that Connie has. We've thought about every single step of this. So when we're out selling and saying, participate, I want you to know that we went deep. We thought about this. And while it happened really quickly, it happened quickly because all of us were holding the pieces, thinking about this so strongly about how this would happen, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to be really clear what the offer is, so that it's really clear what the offer is. The offer is this. This is a CD, a certificate of deposit, all right, that is being held at Self-Help Federal Credit Union in Oakland, the Oakland branch, all right? You can put in $500 minimum into this CD, all right? And you'll get above market rate. They have above market rate for their CD. It's like 1.8 or something at this moment. And it just sits there. And what you're doing is like what Jessica's saying is that you are participating, you are friendly capital that is participating in leveling the playing field for Black entrepreneurs, okay? And so it will sit there, along with the fact that there's the investment side. That's the investment side. It's a done deal, right? You'll get your rate. Along with that is a loan loss reserve that we have got to create, that we're creating as well, that will be the collateral for those loans. So right now, that loan loss reserve, we are raising capital for that. So we are raising, it's a one-to-one relationship, because right now we don't know what the default rate will be. So at this moment, it's a one-to-one. But as we find out what that rate is, it will go down, the loan loss reserve. So we are looking for people, the opportunity is to invest in the CD and to give on the loan loss reserve, all right? So it's a play for you to invest It's a place for you to give. It's a place to invest and give. Whatever one of those opportunities works for you. We're hoping that you will be able to, that you like the one that has where you invest in and you give as well. Because, I mean, we all have something that we can give to try to, if we really know and believe that we want to see a different world, we want a world. Listen, 2040, this country, you know what it's going to look like, right? This is becoming, California is already what is called a minority majority state. The entire country, 2040, we will be a minority majority state, country. That said, when you look at the services, when you look at education, when you look at business, when you look at all the different institutions, and you look at where Black and brown people are at this point on the spectrum, there's a lot that we need to do. There's a lot that needs to happen. And we need to not keep our eyes blinded to the fact that that is coming, it is here. And what we need to do to have a strong country is to, even if it's not a moral issue, it should be just a financial, political issue for us, that we want to contribute our lives towards really bringing forward a country that is going to be strong and led by folks of color, because that is what's going to happen here. So that is what we are doing, is preparing for that, preparing for now, and knowing that we also, like I said, we all have the same theory of change, that the wealth in our communities, really bringing wealth and creating wealth in our communities, is going to come through entrepreneurship. You know, jobs are great. Entrepreneurship is what is going to supply wealth and more jobs. We know that we hire each other. We hire people that we know, just like everybody does, right? And so we really are looking at creating wealth through entrepreneurship, because that is what we do. And so I just want to pile on to everything that Jessica just said. It is a wonderful opportunity, so I want to be really clear that that's what the opportunity is. We're working out the details and the backgrounds, and really just big kudos to Self-Help Federal Credit Union, who is working so hard. Yeah, oh yeah, we'll take that right now. But we're working really hard to really create all the terms, because like we said, it's happening fast, and we are making sure that our opportunities, that this is an opportunity for the entrepreneurs that we work with, and that it will be a good deal for them. You know, we say we believe in our communities, and this is absolutely a way to participate in our community, and something that you could just, $500 is an entry level that even I can scrape together. And just because I believe in our community, and I believe in our entrepreneurs, and I know that I see the genius. I see it every day at Impact Hub Oakland. I see the program that Ronnie has created. I see the results of the program. I see these entrepreneurs who are on fire, who are just brilliant. A couple of them sitting in the room right now, actually. And I see that where the gap is, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to know that there's funding at this level is just not available. And so we're really looking to change that. The website. We haven't even gotten there yet, but it's Self-Help Federal Credit Union is where you should go, and the Oakland branch.
And we'll be able to take anybody's contact information, and we'll be with you. The back end around the donation part is a week or so away, or something like that. But we can. Yeah. We're ready to turn our Word doc into a PDF. I mean, we're at that level, you know?
If you're interested, come up here at the end of this session, and we will make sure we get your emails. And this is turned into a Q&A, yes. Okay, good question. We are looking, it's a pilot. So on this pilot right now, we're just looking to raise $300,000 on each side, $300 on the CD side and $300 on the loan loss reserve. Can you write that check? Okay, yeah.
The blonde woman in the middle.
Yes, a couple of technical questions. What's the term of the CD? What's the length of the investment? And will it be available by QSIP and for, say, a brokerage account, or only directly at the credit union?
Can you give them the mic right
Give them
there?
right there.
No, right in front of you.
Right
In front of you,
Yep.
people with the answer.
The people with the answer.
So on the first question, the CD, our current rates are 1.8, 1.8, 5-year CD. We may offer that at other maturities, but we need to make sure that the maturities match the maturity of the loans closely. And our CD rates are available at self-helpfcu.org. And the rates on this specialty CD will be similar to the ones that you see posted there. On the second question was, it is not. You'd have to become a member of Self-Help Federal and then select into that CD.
Can you talk a little bit about what the product looks like from the entrepreneur side? So who's eligible for the loan? What's the term? What is it like for them?
Give it to Ronnie.
The people with the answer are in the room. That's how it is.
Why don't you stand up, Ronnie?
Yeah. Right now, I should tell you that we're still working through all the details of that, and so we can't really disclose the rates. But it is looking, something like a 5-year loan term, match up with the CD. Very friendly terms. So think of that rich uncle that you get money from, and the kind of terms that he might give to an entrepreneur in order to say, I believe in your business.
Like mid-single digit.
One of the things
Right.
that I just want to, one of the things,
These guys can say that. I can't.
one of the things I just want to say is that this is a brand new product, and so we're fitting a round peg into a square hole right now, and so they're working on the back end to give us. We're asking a lot. We're asking a lot, something that you've never seen before, and they're trying to work it out.
Yeah, in the working with them, it was really great because we were working with Napoleon and then with Brian, and they said, well, does that work? And so it was Ronnie and Brian and Annie going back and forth about what would work, and Annie would say, these entrepreneurs of her cohort can do that. It was a really cool mixed dialogue.
There's a gentleman over there, too, who's had his hand up for a long time, sister in the back.
And I think, was there also a question around the types of entrepreneurs that would okay, so I don't know who could speak
That's
to
again,
it.
Ronnie should speak to that as
pass it
well.
back around.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
Ronnie question. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
people
it's a
heard,
Ronnie question.
The types of entrepreneurs we're working with are across all different industries. They are retail, restaurant, services-based businesses, probably not tech entrepreneurs, but there may be some cases where tech could possibly work. We are targeting African American entrepreneurs, even though it will be inclusive for other groups, but mostly our pipeline is coming from African American entrepreneurs. And there's no, what size loan? About $10,000. And that's about the kind of money it takes to get websites, to get legal stuff in place, get some marketing off the ground so that people can get their business on the right track. Anything else I can add to that?
Is this pilot only for Oakland-based entrepreneurs? And I ask that because I work for Echo and Green and support a ton of entrepreneurs that this could be really helpful to. I wanted to know, is this pilot based in Oakland? And if so, are there plans to expand it to other parts of the nation?
So,
First, let me just
yeah.
say, it excites me every time somebody says, I know more entrepreneurs who really need this, because
I know, right?
that helps to make the case,
Yeah,
right?
that we know we know
yes,
it's needed.
right? And so we know it is really needed, and we cannot wait to be in other areas, but I just wanted to just say,
Yeah, sure.
yay to...
At the moment, it's out of Impact Hub Oakland, and it's out of Self-Help Federal Credit Union in Oakland. Okay, so that doesn't mean that the pipeline is only in Oakland, but it's coming out. So some of our entrepreneurs are from across the bay, some of them are they're from different areas around in Oakland, but it will be based out of Oakland. Does that help you? And then we definitely have plans again, it's a pilot, right? Once we get through this stage, and then, absolutely, scaling it is the whole point. That is the whole point. We are looking to solve a problem that is how many centuries old?
Right.
That is a legacy problem. So we've got to go across the country.
And the great thing is on both sides of the coin, I've had folks already say, like, as soon as you get a little bit of the data, or you get your underwriting guidelines and you're able to share those things, we want to pick up the program. I mean, people are like standing at the door waiting for that. And so we're just hoping to really build out something that is really beautiful around this, and then be able to move that, I think, pretty aggressively.
And I want to say one other thing, is that this is just the start. The loan is the easiest thing right now to do, even though it's like, it's been crazy amount of hours that everybody's been working on it. But one of the things that I just want to state, and that is that when it comes to black businesses, it's so much easier for white businesses to get equity investors, people who believe in them, than it is for black businesses and people of color.
That's right.
And so we are not trying to keep a loan as the only instrument at all. This is getting us out the gate.
Right.
Once we get out the gate, we are going to look for equity, grants. We need to have the entire capital stack suite of products available, because that is really also what is going to help us get our entrepreneurs where they need to be and to build wealth in the community. So I just want to say that and be really clear, because everybody's like, oh, loan, I get it. We need to get started. Yeah. We're going to make it as friendly as possible, and then really spread a suite of other products available. And we know we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. This is really about the runway, but illuminating the runway, right? To make sure that entrepreneurs have a one-stop entry point of how they can get moving onto these various stages of capital. So very rightly and very smartly, a suite of products that we're looking at. And the other thing I want to add in is that culturally relevant suite of products, right?
Yes.
Because there's one thing that, man, oh man, there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening out there, and it does not match how we move, what we do, what we think, where we are, how we feed our babies, how we live. That's culture. So to be able to overlay this into a culturally relevant thing, it's also even really great to put out a CD, but if that CD does not speak to the culture of how you do things, or it doesn't lend itself to the way that we put our money together, it'll still miss. So we have to look at every single angle around all of this, about how we talk about it, who it lands with, where it goes, and we are very carefully moving a lot of that. We got a really big boost because Hub Oakland does culture real well, and so yes.
Let's clap on that one.
So yes.
So this is a question to Kevin. There's a lot of work that you've done as it relates to social capital as it is deployed internationally.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
From your perspective, what's the difference between how that happens internationally in developing or emerging markets elsewhere, and not the emerging markets that we have right underneath our noses here domestically? What do you see as the sort of the defining difference between what goes on, internationally, and what's the gap here locally, especially when we're dealing with communities of color?
Yeah, it's a complicated question in a whole lot of ways. Nobody runs into their politics or what they think about their city when they see solar panels on a village in Tanzania. My friend Xavier Helgeson has he's written $140 million for solar in Tanzania, and it's just a no-brainer. And it takes kerosene out that kills people. They pay 40% less for solar, and he's going to make big money on the deal. When you start doing this locally, everybody has an impression of what they think about that neighborhood and those people, and if you've heard the phrase Black Lives Matter, you may have heard that, and some people have problems with that. But this is a thing where you could deal with structural racism, but start by making more money, and then look at the reason why while you're making more money. So I think we can change the dialogue around the reason there's an African American wealth gap. But you can tell white folks it's not really scary. Remember, you're going to make more money as you engage, and then you can look at it. And so I think it's changing. I think we will help people act their way into a new way of thinking especially as they meet a new set of entrepreneurs. And you take the story of dependence and you have the story of actually you're co-investing with somebody in your own community who's creating wealth like you. I mean, that story makes sense to the small business Rotarian kind of person. So I think, I don't want to confront it head on, but I want to sneak up on it and make them feel good while they do it. You need your mic again.
So there's this notion of a cultural shift that needs to happen on the part of entrepreneurs in these communities, but there also seems to be a cultural shift that needs to take place on behalf of folks that are, looking at these communities and saying,
Exactly
hey,
right.
where are these deficiencies?
And so you can try to get them to change their way of thinking, and it's harder, but if you get them to act their way into a new way of thinking, then they discover, oh, look, I've acted that way. And then that's why I want to work with faith-based groups to help people reflect on that action. I've acted that way into a new way of thinking. How do I think about my neighbor now? How is that neighborhood that I don't think about as part of my world suddenly different? And, from that, how can I reduce the loan loss reserve and make this a success? So, it's act first and then think later.
I think one of the things, if I could jump in also, I think one of the things that is important is part of creating these news stories. I think we all have to take ownership in reframing the stories that we're telling, not only about our communities, about Black entrepreneurs and Black business owners, but also to investors. I mean, there's a different appetite. Different investors are going to have different appetites. And just like we're trying to build, like this, I'm going to use your word, runway. Like we're trying to build this runway, if you will, for entrepreneurs so that not only do they get started, but that runway keeps up and allows them to take off. We need to find investors who can share or either build a runway for investors with that same kind of appetite. Investors who will come in now and invest in this CD, investors who will invest in some of our CDFI members, investors who invest in Dream Fund. I mean, all of those investment vehicles are going to look different. And our ability to continue to create the kinds of products that our community needs will depend on having a variety of investors with varying appetites for different levels of investments and businesses and opportunities. And I think that's what's important for us, to recognize Dream Fund, recognize Runway Project. All of these are opportunities for investors, but we need to all help start telling and reframing what the storyline is for investment.
But one of the things that I just want to say is that what you're asking, I really feel, is a cultural question. And it has to do with, I mean, I've been, if you read the work from Donella Meadows, when she talks about the 12 levers of systems change, she looks at the 12 levers of system change, and the most crucial, the first lever, the most important lever is culture, right? And the culture is how we see ourselves and the way we think and our worldview. And that is, we create the world as we see it. How we think about it is how we create it, right? And so when we look at a planet that's on fire, when we look at inequality, when we look at all the challenges that we have on this earth, it is not a mystery when you think about how we as human beings live and think, that this is the result that we're getting. We're getting exactly what we're creating by the way we think about things. So we're talking about, in my world, I mean, you can look at you can look at a situation that you want to change, or you can look even bigger at the systemic nature of it all. And in this big system, how humans think and feel about who we are on the planet, okay? Our hierarchy that we have, whether it's gender hierarchy, race hierarchy, economic hierarchy, there's so much when I think about the planet as a whole and all of us on it that needs to be changed. And so we're doing things right now. So what you're asking to me is like, well, how the investor, it's really about changing that way that we see, the way that we are, that our worldview, but it also can start by just acting like it, seeing a product, seeing something that hits somebody and go, oh, I should do this. And then as they do it, they learn the bigger story, or they learn the bigger question, and they look at it bigger, and they go, oh, I mean, when I even look at Kevin, I'm going to out Kevin. When I look at Kevin and the change that I have seen you, honestly, since I've known you, as far as what you saw, what you didn't see when I asked you that question, and what you see now, I would love to map your journey. Your journey I have seen.
Yeah. You know, there's an analogy on culture, and I don't know, I have to think about that. But Vermont was the first state that had gay marriage, and there was a state legislator there who really kind of won the day with her own experience. She had a lesbian couple move in, and she was really pretty scared. Like, lesbians are moving in, and what are they going to do? And then she had had 2 years of experience at this point of the legislation. She says, I've discovered they're really good neighbors. What they're like is that they feed my dog when I'm on vacation and they water my plants.
And they go to the bathroom and they eat.
Yeah, but that they are good neighbors. He says, this is what these people are like. I was afraid, and now I trust them with my puppies and my African violets. You know, and that whole. If you watch any of that debate, nobody had an answer for that. She changed the debate by describing they're not scary. And so I think we can change the story of, look, we have these entrepreneurs. This is another story. They came to our Sunday school, and it was, now we buy catering from them. All that. So I think gay marriage changed really quickly. Things can change really quickly.
Conda, let me ask a question really quickly. And I'm really glad that Rosalie is in the room as well, because this taps into something I know we are both interested in. And I'm talking about this from the vantage point of being the granddaughter and great-granddaughter of a preacher and father who is the chairman of the deacon board. And I'm going to tell you all something when you talk about culture and how important this is. Black folks know how to raise money, because I think we raise the most money on Sunday morning. The amount of money that we put in the church, every church I know, every church that I've been a part of, every church that one of my uncles or grandfather's preaching, everybody got a building fund. There's more building funds in African American communities than you want to. Seriously, y'all laughing, but y'all know it's true. I'm gonna go ahead and out us, right? So we got more building funds going on, and we put more money. When you talk about philanthropy and giving, we put more money in tithes and offerings and building funds or in churches on Sunday than I think any community. And so I'm wondering, as we talk about changing the narrative, we talk about changing these stories, has any thought been into how do we, Kevin and I appreciate your allyship coming from a white cisgender male perspective, but how are we talking to our folk? How are we talking to black folks? How are we getting into churches and barbershops and beauty salons, nail salons, and telling our people about the importance of this fund?
Thank you, Davida. I mean, we definitely, thank you for that. We definitely have been talking about that and how to employ it. Like, you know, Allen Temple Church in Oakland, sitting on all kinds of cash, right? And we're looking at that strategy, particularly churches we've been talking about, and going to the churches and presenting. So we are looking at all that whole strategy.
Yeah, I would say, you know, this is an entry point. There's a larger play for me around making culturally relevant products for African Americans to invest in their own communities, period.
Right.
Period. Right. And I think there's some levers to play in Alabama, in the rural area right around Selma, Wilcox County, folks where they march and all these things. There are a whole bunch of little churches, and every Monday they go and make the Sunday deposits from that past Sunday. And these little churches in these backwoods, small little places or whatever, are putting it into their regular little bank account, around, $500,000 on Mondays. That's what's happening. So to be able to change that narrative and that conversation and to have a product that they are familiar with, that it has an easy entry point, that they can continue to sort of view, matters. Also finding ways where we can add in how we raise money, because we do raise money, to your point, we raise money, and it ain't always at church either, we raise some money. But to be able to tap into those things and drop in an entrepreneurial lens into that strategy is other things that we want to try out as we build on this. So.
The only thing I'll add, yesterday I was back in DC, AEO co-hosted with JP Morgan Chase forum on inclusive entrepreneurship and capital access. And we had, I mean, the room was full and that was great and everybody was happy, a lot of energy. But what struck me was we had over 115,000 people listening when it was live stream on Radio 1. And so one of the things that Jessica was on a Black Business Forum we had in May at our annual conference, and Roland Martin was the MC moderated the forum, and he really preached, if you will, using your church metaphor, he really preached to the crowd about going where Black folks are, right, which is radio. I had no idea that we were so much on the radio airwaves. So in terms of getting not only to the church, which I agree with you, but even the folks in the church need to hear it from other places to get them to actually, shift where they're putting some of that money or being able to designate some of those church funds somewhere else. And so I really want to encourage us to think about using radio to actually get some of these messages out and get people acclimated to being able to give and invest and be a part of this.
I think we are at the end of our time.
We're at the end of our time. Thank you so
so
much.
much.
Thank y'all so much.
If you're interested, hang around the front. We can talk to you. Thank you.